Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we have a review. Now, reviews are not something I'm going to do a lot of, and I don't take them lightly. There's a lot of 2-bit content creators out there that want to make their mark on the world doing reviews with whatever their particular spin on the world is, and I'm just not about that, all right? I'm a salesman by trade. So in my professional life, I can do that as much as I want. And on my personal medium here, it's just not something that I really want to do. And so I hope that when I do choose to review something, I hope that in and of itself is a statement. And so today we're here to review Daniel Horner's Altimas. Altimas? Hope I'm saying it right. Dan's punching his screen already. But I'm here to review Daniel Horner's Altimas training program, and just wanted to put out my thoughts there on it. A bit of a disclaimer. All right, well, first, I'm in the industry, obviously, so everybody on your end of the camera is already going to look at me with a bit of suspicion. I hope if nothing else, we can establish through my body of work here on my personal outlet, which is not monetized, that I'm really trying to maintain my objectivity, which I think I do very well. And also, I'm really coming at it from the standpoint of trying to help you invest your scarce resources wisely. I have access to a lot of resources that you probably don't. And so seeing it from this side of the transaction, helping you decide what is and is not worth your funds. And so that's really what I'm here to do. Also a disclaimer, I know Dan personally. I would not say we're like close friends. I have his number. If I called him right now, he'd probably answer. I don't know his kids' names or his birthday. Give you an idea. We correspond. It's usually around multi-gun nationals or USPSA stuff. But I mean, I have had a lot of contact with the AMU over the years, participating in the sport, mutual friends, blah, 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 blah. And so I do know him, and he, full disclosure, let me behind the paywall for free. And to really, I think really the reason he gave me access was to get feedback. All right. So this wasn't done for a review. I was going to do it anyway. But he did ask, like after we talked about it a little bit, he asked if I would put something out on it. I was gonna anyway, but understand that this is information I did not pay for, and I do know him personally before any of this. But when I saw that Dan came out with a training program, a subscription-based training program, I was immediately interested. All right. At where I feel like I'm at in my journey as a shooter, as an industry person, as an athlete, there aren't very many people, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, there are not very many people who I really care what they have to say about shooting or competition. It's a very short list, all right? I probably have enough fingers, and it's probably like one hand, who I would drop everything and listen to what they had to say on a subject if they chose to speak on it. And Dan's one of those guys where he doesn't just throw this out there for free very often. So to get it at all from him is a bit of a unique opportunity, and to have it captured in a palatable way that you can peruse at your leisure is really a treat. Because I've been fortunate enough to squad with guys like Jerry Micklick and Rob Latham, guys of this nature who have equally as much or more to say, but to get it out of them is a bit of a trick. And really you kind of got to snatch it in the moment. Like, it's pretty rare that they put their treasure out there for you in a way that you can come in and snack on it like a buffet. So when I saw that Dan had decided to go this route, had put some production value in it and whatnot, I was immediately interested. And be completely honest, I was going to buy it myself with my own money, and see what he had to say before I was allowed behind. But in full disclosure, I was allowed behind the paywall without charge for feedback to him, and also the implication would probably be some kind of review, although that was not explicitly implied. But just full disclosure on that. My perspective on training is also a bit different. Like, say, I have a ton of access to training, all right? So I know a bunch of firearms training professionals throughout the industry, and have ready access to take all kinds of training opportunities. It's easy for me to indulge, whereas you on the other side of this, you are on the outside of the paywall, deciding if this is worth your money. There are tons of programs out there. People wanting you, especially in the age of Patreon, everybody wants you to subscribe monthly, get you to do all this stuff. And it's hard to know what is good and what is value, and gosh, you can only subscribe to so many things, right? Before your paycheck's gone. So, like, is this really worth what you're after? Is something that I look at. I look at it both from my selfish view, but also, I mean, a big part of the reason I feel like I have a position like I do in the industry is because I have an ability to convey to you what this is like, to see if it's what you want to spend your money on. All right. So that's kind of an awkward way around that. And then, like I say, there just aren't very many people who I really care what they have to say on the subject. So I'm pretty hungry to find good information. I'm also pretty frustrated to actually find some. So in my opinion, there's three kinds of firearms instructors or competition type instructors in the industry right now. Most common would be the ones who are taking an easy slide into retirement. All right, you would find this at most law enforcement agencies, really anywhere. All right, it's kind of a trickle down into, hey, you have lots of experience, so therefore you must be able to teach. And so they teach, and it's like, well, I don't have to do the hard work anymore. I just kind of hang out here and teach people. Vast majority of firearms instructors are either retired or on the road to retirement and kind of sliding in there. So a lot of firearms training, in my opinion, or firearms-based training, is really folks who are sliding. Sorry, not sorry. The next group, I would say, that you might get a little bit more media information out of is a group of people who are trying to monetize their hobby. All right, so they want to do more shooting and more competition. So they're like, well, what better way than to make it a business? And so they try to sell classes and books and subscriptions and whatever as a way to monetize their hobby. And some of this is good. I mean, I could think of a few pros that do this pretty well and put out good information. But also a lot of it, if the motivation is really monetizing a hobby, it can only really be so good, especially if, the person putting that out hasn't really accomplished anything. The third group of people, and I would put Dan in this category, is people who have actually figured something out. and they've actually accomplished something. And especially if they've already kind of met their goals, not to say that he's peaked, but like Dan has been a dominant force in the sport of action shooting, and specifically 3-gun, for over 2 decades. And in that time, people like him, I assume, are pretty comfortable with what they've accomplished. They've figured something out, and they want to convey it to other people so that those people can be successful. These people are very rare, but these are the ones you're looking for. All right. And I do feel like Altimas is one of those programs, from somebody who has been there, has done the thing, and not so much just done the thing. Lots of people have done the thing, but a lot of people can't really articulate how they did it. So we're already a very finite number of people who have been there and done the thing. And then of those, there's a very small group who could actually articulate how they did it and maybe put it in a palatable way for you to do something with what they learned in their experience to continue your journey. I think this is that. I have notes over here. So usually I just shoot from the hip, but I thought this was important, so I wanted to just make some notes on it. This is a mental course, all right? So this is a mental management is a trademarked term, but this is a mindset and an athletic execution course. If you're looking for how to do reloads and what length of barrel you should put on your AR-15, this isn't that, all right? There is several hours of material behind the paywall here, and I can just tell you as of right now, you will not see Dan pull the trigger one time. All right. There's plenty of places you can do that elsewhere, and this material isn't about that. This is about we'll call it the athletic process of goal setting, training, and achieving an outcome, and then managing that whole experience along the way to be a successful competitor, yes, but also probably a well-rounded person in addition. I would say especially folks who are really competing at a high level, that identity is probably something that a lot of folks struggle with, because athletic excellence is a very immersive experience. It's very selfish. And so maintaining your identity outside of the sport and keeping the rest of your life in balance is actually probably more complicated than it would seem if you're going hard at an athletic goal. And they talk about some of that stuff in here. So it's not just about winning matches. I think it's also about being kind of holistic in achieving a goal, but appreciating it when you get it too. And also maybe preparing you for what that looks like. I'm trying not to give away too much of the material, but like what actually happens when you get on the backside of that and you kind of get to the what now stuff. That's some of what's talked about in here. But this is a mental course. And so a lot of times I actually work a lot with USPSA classification goals, especially locally here with our club and people at our club. There's a lot of people who watch this stuff. All right. And I kind of describe it as two things. Like when we talk about classification goals, a lot of people will classify very well, but then say, well, that doesn't really mean anything because they don't do well at a match. All right. Or they don't do well at a match. Oh, well, the lots of armchair quarterbacks will say, well, yeah, he's a GM, but he finished 75% at nationals. I would say that classifier scores or classification skills are hardware skills, all right? Draws, reloads, target transitions, splits, all of this type of stuff. Those are hardware skills, all right? That's the nuts and bolts of playing the game. The mental aspect, I would say, is software, all right? So software is the actual like program and using it, all right? So You can do a sub-second reload, but when do you use that? And is it always advantageous to use and stuff like that? The mental side of the game, I think, is the software stuff, and that is what separates people who classify high but don't finish well at the match, and people who win matches are people who have this software side figured out. And so I think not everybody, but a lot of people get to the point in the sport where they develop their hardware skills, but they haven't really addressed the athletic part or the mental part, the execution part. They think that if they just practice draws long enough that they'll win matches. This is the software side of things. So once you have these hardware skills, how do we apply them to the context of a match and do well for us at a match? That's a lot of what this material is talking about. It's, I don't know, it's hard to describe in words. Obviously I'm trying to, but I've personally have been on a bit of a journey, like a mindset and self-improvement type journey for a while. I've been learning and growing, and I'm kind of always hungry, to think about this kind of stuff. And when this material becomes available, it's pretty easy in the era of information to immerse yourself in this type of stuff. You can listen to motivational stuff and self-help stuff and personal growth stuff until you're blue in the face, all right? But even then, it's still pretty rare that something foundational will change your bearing or your perspective on things, all right? So a couple examples of things for me, With Winning in Mind, all right? That's a title, Lanny Basham's book, With Winning in Mind, passed around pretty predominantly in action shooting sports. And then, subsequently, I'm on record of being a fan of Steve Anderson's application of that to action shooting sports, all right? So With Winning in Mind, that was a influential and foundational title that I read. Drastically changed perspective and direction for me. Atomic Habits would be another book, all right? When I read that was a light switch moment. Anything by Jordan Peterson, all right? Jordan Peterson's been a pretty big influence on me in the last couple of years, all right? Just the way he says it and the message he has affects change. Ryan Holiday with Stoicism stuff, his interpretations of the Stoic texts from Marcus Aurelius and all that stuff, all right? Foundational. I would put the Altimas material in that list of stuff that fundamentally changed how I look at competition, sure, but also life. And it's kind of one of those things, once you consume it, you can't go back to the way it was before. The color of your lens is going to change. And I think this is one of those. It is profound material presented in a palatable way, that if you're receptive to this kind of information, I think is pretty powerful stuff, and certainly worth your investment and your time to consume it. So if you're looking for a way to build as an athlete or as a professional, I think it's cheap. I told Dan straight up. He's like, "What do you think about the price?" I said, "I think this is worth at least twice what you're charging as a value. It's just getting people to buy it, all right? Because very few people will invest in this. People will buy all kinds of equipment. They'll go to all kinds of shooting classes. To actually just buy meat and potatoes, that's a pretty hard sell. I'm a salesman, all right? That's a pretty hard sell to get to sell meat and potatoes. You can sell sugar all day long. It's not even that hard, all right? To sell protein, that's tough, all right? And that's what it is. So I think if I were you, I would jump on this thing before he decides to charge more for it, because I think it's pretty bargain price for the level of material you get, for the access you get to a to say multi-time champion is just putting it pretty cheaply. But I mean, to get this kind of access into the mind of one of the greatest athletes in our sport of our time, is truly, it's a unique experience, and I think it is very high value. I think Dan really poured himself into this. I think they invested a lot in filming it well and putting it in a palatable format. So it's done very conversational. I would say it's very business casual. All right. So like, I mean, we're here to take a class, but it's not super formal. But I mean, he's sitting in a chair and it's very conversational. It just kind of flows off the screen pretty well. It's broken into a lot of pieces. So with few exceptions, it's a bunch of segments that are maybe 5 to 10 minutes in succession. So it's not overwhelming to consume. You can kind of start and stop as you want. One thing kind of flows very well into the next, but at the same time, they're all kind of complete thoughts. So you can kind of start and stop as you want. I pretty much binge watched 3/4 of it in one flight. I had a long flight and I watched most of it, and then finished watching the second quarter of it in one sitting right here while I was doing some annual maintenance to finish it up and make this video for you guys. But I pretty much watched the whole thing in 2 sittings. And I would say that's pretty rare for me, that I would beginning to end something like that, unless it is very compelling. So it was a good job on that. Like I said, very palatable. Conversational flows well. Like I said, right now, there's not a whole lot of shooting in there. I think if shooting gets added to it, really, that's just the bait to get you to get the part that he has in there now, which is really, I think is really the meat of how he arrived. I mean, not necessarily that he always used, but through his process and through his experience, developed a system for winning. And I think that's what he conveyed to you. I took one of the speak of training, one of the early classes I took when I had the opportunity to go take some shooting classes. I went to tactical response. All right, that's a pretty controversial place. And one of the things that James Yeager said, there's a big lecture. It's a 3-day shooting course. All right, there's a big lecture on day 2. It's a couple hours, and James said that he really wanted people to have the lecture. Like, that is the whole point of the class, is he really wanted to give this lecture to people, to convey this information to them, and he would give it away for free, but no one would listen. He said the only way he could get people to come and listen to this material was to charge them money and let them do a bunch of shooting. And so he's like, the shooting, is really, that's really just that's just the carrot to get you to come and listen to the material and take away the material. So people came for the shooting, they really left with the concepts and the material. And so I think if actual like run and gun shooting stuff gets added into Altimas, I really think that's just a carrot. The good stuff is in there right now. I think as of this recording, I think he's even running it on sale. But like I said, I think it is great foundational material. I'm running out of words, and I got a lot of them. It's good stuff. If you're at all interested in taking your competition shooting to the next level, or building on what you got and setting some goals and really improving as an athlete, as a shooter, as a professional. It's not really, it's in the context of shooting, but what he's talking about and what he's describing applies to a lot of things. If you're at all in that vein of any of that stuff, if you, like I say, if you're into Jordan Peterson or Ryan Holiday, Atomic Habits, any of that stuff, you absolutely owe it to yourself to sign up for Altimas and see what Dan has to say, because I think it is simply spectacular and worth every penny. If you have any questions on that, I'm not going to give away too much of the sauce, because at the end of the day, he put it down for you. So he figured it out on his own. So this is America, so people should get paid for their intellectual property. That's what I was looking for. It's his intellectual property, so I'm not gonna spark notes it for it or cliff notes it for you. But if any of this is intriguing to you, it is absolutely worth a watch, and I would highly recommend Dan Horner's Altimas. Until next time, see you guys on the range.